At 4:47 a.m., a frantic call came in from a neighbor. The voice was trembling. "There's blood everywhere. The pastor's house, they're all gone." What officers discovered inside was the kind of evil you only read about in novels. A respected man of God, a horrifying secret, and a plan so disturbing it defied comprehension. But the most shocking part? What happened just 3 days after the murders? Before we unravel this disturbing story, tell us in the comments, do you believe monsters can hide behind holy faces? And if you never want to miss stories like this, hit that subscribe button. In the quiet town of Meadowbrook, nestled amidst rolling hills and winding roads, the community found solace in the teachings of Pastor Daniel Harper. A man of unwavering faith, his sermons resonated with the townsfolk, offering guidance and hope. His family, too, was the epitome of virtue. His wife, Grace, known for her charitable endeavors, and their 3 children, each active in church activities. But beneath this veneer of piety lay a darkness that no one could have anticipated. On a chilly September morning, emergency services were summoned to the Harper residence. The scene that greeted them was one of unimaginable horror. Blood smeared across walls, overturned furniture, and the lifeless bodies of Grace and the children. Pastor Harper was found unconscious, a knife clutched in his hand, and the house set ablaze. Investigations revealed a harrowing truth. Pastor Harper had orchestrated the massacre. Overwhelmed by mounting debts and fearing the shame of financial ruin, he believed death was a preferable fate for his family. His confession sent shockwaves through Meadowbrook, shattering the community's trust. 3 days after the tragedy, as the town grappled with grief, Harper, from his hospital bed, recited Psalm 51, seeking forgiveness. But for many, redemption seemed out of reach. The courtroom was packed on the day of sentencing. Harper, once a beacon of hope, was handed a 30-year prison term. The judge's words echoed the sentiments of many, a betrayal of the highest order. As Meadowbrook tries to heal, the question lingers. How could a man of God commit such an act? The line between righteousness and malevolence, it seems, is thinner than we dare to imagine. Before we delve deeper into stories like this, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. They looked like any other family in a small southern town. Sunday dinners, church picnics, family vacations captured in fading Polaroids, moments that now feel like lies. At the center of it all was Pastor Daniel Green, beloved by the congregation, a man whose voice calmed restless souls, whose prayers were trusted to reach heaven faster than anyone else's. Then there was Martha Green, quiet, composed, always by his side. The kind of wife who served communion, baked pies for the youth group, and never missed a single Sunday service. And Elena, their 17-year-old daughter, bright, talented, the apple of her father's eye. But Elena had a secret, one so deeply buried it was never meant to come to light. They lived in Hopewell, Georgia, a town where the doors stayed unlocked and the biggest crime used to be someone speeding past a stop sign. Everybody knew each other, everybody trusted the Greens. So when the bodies were found, no one knew what to believe, because the facts made no sense. Why would a father murder his entire family? Why was Elena's diary hidden beneath the floorboards? Why did Pastor Green insist he had to protect the child? Why did he want his own daughter pregnant? What did Martha know? And what happened 3 days after the crime that no one saw coming? Before we go any further, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you never want to miss stories like this one, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. From the outside, the Greens were the family everyone admired. Pastor Daniel Green stood at the pulpit every Sunday with a warm smile and words that could make grown men weep. People came from other counties just to hear him speak. His sermons were filled with stories about forgiveness, grace, and family. He baptized generations. He married couples. He comforted the grieving. To many in Hopewell, he wasn't just a pastor, he was a moral compass. Martha Green rarely said much in public, but her presence was felt. She organized every potluck. She taught Bible study for young wives. She never raised her voice and always had a soft look in her eyes, the kind that made people feel safe even if she didn't say a word. Their daughter, Elena, was Hopewell's golden girl, top of her class, lead singer in the church choir. She had a voice people said was a gift from God. At Sunday services, all eyes were on her when she sang, and afterward, she was the first to help clean up the sanctuary or sit with elderly church members during lunch. There were home videos of the family at church picnics, Daniel flipping burgers, Martha holding a baby that wasn't hers, Elena laughing while running through sprinklers in a long white dress, photos of father-daughter dances, videos of her singing Amazing Grace with Daniel beaming from the front pew. They looked perfect. But perfection has a way of hiding things. One of Elena's friends, a girl named Rachel, would later say in an interview, "She started pulling away. First from the choir, then from everyone. I asked her what was going on, and she said these weird things like, 'My dad has plans for me.' People assumed it was about college, maybe a mission trip, but the way she said it, it stayed with Rachel, and it haunts her now. Still, no one suspected anything was wrong." The Greens hosted church dinners at their home. Daniel and Elena would sing duets at holiday services. Martha always wore a cross necklace that matched her husband's wedding band. They were the heartbeat of a church that felt more like a family than a congregation. And that's what made it all the more devastating, because no one saw it coming. No one ever imagined that behind the hymns, behind the prayers, behind the smiles, there was something deeply, terribly wrong. It was a Sunday night when Elena finally broke her silence. Her friend Rachel, the same one who had noticed the distance, the changes, the strange comments, was sitting with her behind the church after evening service. The cicadas were loud, the church lights glowing behind them, casting long shadows on the grass. Elena was crying, but this time, she didn't hold back. "I'm pregnant," she whispered. Rachel was stunned. And then, Elena added something no one was prepared to hear. "It's my dad's." Rachel didn't speak, she just stared. Her hands started shaking. The next morning, Rachel went straight to the youth pastor. She told him everything. He promised he would report it first thing Monday morning. He just needed a few hours, but by Monday morning the greenhouse was silent, too silent. A neighbor noticed the mail piling up by the porch. No movement inside, no lights, no sound. By evening the smell had started. The call to 911 came just before 5 a.m. the next day, a neighbor's trembling voice. "There's blood everywhere. The pastor's house. They're all gone." What officers discovered inside shook the town to its core. The living room was spotless, the dining table still set with 3 plates, but upstairs, everything changed. Martha Green was in bed, still in her nightgown. A half-full mug of chamomile tea sat cold on the nightstand. Toxicology would later confirm it had been laced with a powerful sedative and a fatal dose of antifreeze. The children, the 2 youngest, 8 and 11, were found in their shared bedroom. They had been smothered in their sleep. No signs of struggle, just silence, stillness. But it didn't end there. Just 2 blocks away, in a rusted-out trailer he sometimes stayed in, officers found the body of Noah Mitchell, Elena's boyfriend, 17 years old, a good kid, shot once in the chest. His phone, still lit on the floor, displayed the last text message he had received. "You shouldn't have gotten involved." Elena was missing. At first, investigators feared the worst, that she was one of the bodies still waiting to be found, that she had been buried, burned, hidden. But then a surveillance camera surfaced from a gas station 20 miles out. At 2:19 a.m., Daniel Green was seen fueling up his car. Elena was in the passenger seat. She looked dazed, frozen, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. From there, they disappeared. 12 hours later, a letter was found on Daniel's desk inside the church office, folded neatly, typed. It read, "The world wouldn't let us be. Now we can be together in peace." The letter was signed with a verse from the book of Revelation. Police traced Daniel's car to a remote cabin he had access to, property owned by a former church member who had passed away years earlier. When officers arrived, the front door was ajar. Inside, there were two makeshift beds. One had blood on the sheets. There was a Bible, open to the story of Abraham and Isaac. 2 plates of uneaten food, and a small bundle of clothing, children's pajamas. In the corner of the room, they found Daniel's lifeless body, a single gunshot wound to the head, the gun still in his hand. But Elena wasn't there. She was gone. There was no body, no trace, no sign of struggle. For 3 days, Hopewell descended into chaos. Prayer vigils were held, flyers were printed. Some feared she had died somewhere in those woods. Others wondered if she had run. Then came the emergency call from a nearby farmhouse, the voice of a young woman, soft, barely audible. "He's gone. Please, help me." It was Elena. She was alive, and what she told investigators changed everything they thought they knew. But what Pastor Green didn't know was that someone was still alive, and she remembered everything. The small town of Hopewell had seen tragedy before. Car crashes, fires, even the occasional overdose. But nothing like this. Not the Green family, not the pastor, not the people who brought casseroles to the sick and prayed over the school board. When police first entered the Green residence, it was quiet, too quiet. The kind of stillness that didn't belong in a home once filled with laughter, piano music, and bedtime prayers. The entryway was spotless. The family photos on the wall hadn't been touched. But once investigators moved past the hallway, they began to see the truth. Upstairs, the bedrooms were a different world. Martha's body was discovered first, peaceful, almost like she was asleep. But the teacup on her nightstand told a different story. Inside it, traces of ethylene glycol, a substance commonly found in antifreeze. She never stood a chance. The 2 youngest children, still in their pajamas, were found next, positioned as if someone had tucked them in, as if someone wanted it to look gentle. But this was anything but gentle. In the study, officers found a half-burned journal inside the fireplace, the pages still curling with ash. They pulled what they could. Most of it was unreadable, but one page survived. Written in Elena's handwriting, "He said I was chosen, that God had a plan. I wanted to scream." Beside the fireplace, officers also found Elena's cell phone, tucked between couch cushions, battery at 2%. And on the screen, one final text to her best friend. "He says we're leaving tonight. I'm scared." That message would be the key. Within hours, a nationwide manhunt was launched. Local news stations broke the story first, but by nightfall, it had hit every major outlet. Missing pastor and pregnant teen daughter, church leader suspected in family massacre, God's house of secrets, the Green family tragedy. Tips came in from across the state. People claimed to have seen Elena at rest stops, diners, even walking along the interstate. But none of them panned out. 48 hours later, police traced a car spotted on a game warden's camera. A dark gray sedan heading down a dirt road in the middle of nowhere. That road led to the old cabin. Inside, they found what they expected and what they didn't. Daniel Green, dead by his own hand. The bloodied gun at his side. 2 plates of untouched food. A Bible marked with verses about sacrifice, and one cot, soaked in blood. But no Elena. She was gone. At first, investigators leaned toward a murder-suicide. A man ashamed, guilty, broken, who killed his family, kidnapped his daughter, and ended his life in a remote hideout. But something didn't add up. The pathologist noted something during the initial autopsy reports. Elena wasn't just a runaway teen. She was 5 months pregnant. That changed everything. Suddenly, the journal entries took on new meaning. The Sunday sermons, many of them laced with metaphors about divine lineage and God's chosen bloodlines, were re-examined. Members of the congregation remembered things they had brushed off, moments they had dismissed, a touch that lingered too long, a father who never let his daughter out of sight, And then came another piece of evidence. Inside the cabin, police found a second note, hidden under the mattress. A single sentence typed on a torn page. If the world doesn't understand love, we'll show them what devotion looks like. It wasn't just murder, it was obsession, delusion, control masked as protection. The investigation spiraled in a dozen directions. Some questioned whether Martha had known. Why hadn't she said anything? Had she turned a blind eye, or had she too been controlled? The church congregation was divided. Some refused to believe any of it. They said it was a setup. They said the media twisted the story. Others quietly admitted to themselves that there had always been something off, something no one wanted to see. And then, just as the community tried to heal, just as the headlines started to fade, a package arrived at the Hopewell Police Department. No return address, just a plain envelope. Inside it, a flash drive. Officers loaded it onto a secure computer. The file was short, less than 2 minutes. It opened with Daniel's voice. "I did what I had to do. God spoke to me. They wouldn't let us live in peace. But now, we are free." Then, a shadow in the background. A blurred figure. Someone sitting, still, quiet. A girl. It was Elena. But Pastor Green wasn't done yet. He had one final, horrifying act. In the days that followed, the nation was gripped by the unfolding horror in Hopewell. What had begun as a local tragedy now exposed something far more disturbing, a hidden sickness festering behind church walls, disguised by holy words and stained glass. But the worst was still to come. As investigators combed through evidence from the remote cabin, they uncovered something that would shift the entire case. A motion-activated security camera, hidden, dusty, and nearly forgotten, had captured hours of footage. Set up in the corner of the main room, it was aimed at the cot, the kitchen, and the fireplace. Most of the video was silent, just Daniel pacing, muttering scripture, preparing meals that were never eaten. But then came the recordings from the second night. Daniel sits by the cot where Elena is lying still, her hands bound gently with cloth. He speaks to her in a voice disturbingly calm, loving even, not like a father, like a man speaking to his wife. "I told you, this world wouldn't understand, but God sees us. You were made for me." He strokes her hair, reads to her from the book of Genesis, then whispers, "You are my Eve, and through you, a new world begins." Investigators watched in horror as the tapes continued. Daniel's voice shifting between scripture and sick justifications. He claimed he had been chosen, that an angel had come to him in a dream and told him his bloodline was sacred, that Elena was pure, untouched by the corruption of the outside world, that the others, Martha, the children, Elena's boyfriend, were obstacles placed by Satan. That was the word he used, obstacles. One journal entry, recovered and translated from the charred remains, read, "The serpent tempts Eve to doubt. But if I am Adam and she is Eve, there can be no fall, only rebirth." In Daniel's mind, this wasn't incest, it wasn't abuse, it was divine. The footage was turned over to prosecutors. Even the most seasoned detectives said it was the most disturbing thing they had ever seen. The courtroom was packed. Journalists sat shoulder to shoulder. Elena appeared via closed-circuit video, shielded from the public, her face partially hidden for safety. Now 6 months pregnant, she trembled as she answered questions. Her voice was barely above a whisper. She said she'd been groomed since she was 12, that her father used Bible verses to manipulate her, that he told her God would curse her if she disobeyed, that he made her believe she was special, chosen, and that the pain she felt was proof of sacrifice. When the video from the cabin was shown in court, a collective gasp filled the room. Even jurors looked away. The most chilling moment? Daniel looking straight into the lens, as if he knew it was recording, and saying, "If anyone finds this, know that love cannot be killed. We have fulfilled the will of God." Public outrage was immediate. The story dominated headlines for weeks. Pastor's pregnant daughter speaks out. He said I was chosen. America's sacred scars, abuse behind the pulpit, the Green case, and the warped theology of control. Debates exploded across the country about the unchecked power of pastors, about how institutions protect predators in robes, about why no one saw the signs or why they ignored them. Church leaders scrambled to respond. Some condemned Daniel's actions, others distanced themselves entirely. But some congregants from Hopewell's church still refused to believe it. They called Elena confused. They called her manipulated. Some even said the pregnancy was her fault. But the facts were impossible to ignore. The confession, the footage, the evidence left behind. One final letter from Daniel was discovered later, hidden in a hymnal in his office drawer. It read, "A seed must die before it becomes a tree. Through fire and faith, we are reborn." There was no redemption in those words, only delusion. Elena was placed under state protection, her identity sealed. Her child, born months later, would carry no trace of the Green name. She had asked for it to be wiped completely, erased. Because in the end, Pastor Daniel Green wasn't just a man who failed his family. He twisted faith into a weapon, used scripture as a cage, and turned the people who trusted him most into victims of his madness. And still, one final horrifying act remained. 3 days after his arrest, just as the court prepared to bring formal charges against him, multiple counts of murder, unlawful imprisonment, and aggravated abuse, Pastor Daniel Green was found dead. 6:12 a.m., Franklin County Jail. Cell Block B. Correctional officers doing routine rounds discovered his body suspended by a torn bedsheet, knotted to a ventilation grate above the toilet. His cellmate had been removed the night prior. There were no signs of struggle. At first glance, it was an open and shut case. The disgraced pastor had taken his own life. The official cause of death, suicide by hanging. Another monster who couldn't face justice. But a few days later, the autopsy results raised questions. Toxicology reports detected sedatives in his bloodstream, specifically high levels of lorazepam, a drug not available to inmates unless prescribed and closely monitored. Jail staff claimed he'd never requested any medication. His inmate log showed no symptoms of depression, no psychiatric visits, no red flags. The cameras outside his cell malfunctioned the night of his death. Inmates nearby reported nothing unusual, no shouting, no banging, just quiet, too quiet. The story made front-page headlines once again. Pastor found dead in cell, suicide or silenced. Justice served or stolen. Secrets followed him to the grave. Rumors swept through the town of Hopewell. Some said it was an inside job. Others believed vigilante justice had caught up to him. A guard, perhaps, or someone connected to the victims. A final act of vengeance for the lives taken and the child yet to be born. But without surveillance footage, and with the jail declining to comment further, the speculation only grew. In the church he once led, the pews sat empty, the pulpit abandoned. The stained glass windows filtered light onto dust. The church board quietly dissolved. Congregants mourned not just a man, but a lie, a facade they had worshipped, a shepherd who'd led them into darkness. Meanwhile, in a nearby courthouse archive, prosecutors sealed the files. The case officially closed, but outside the walls of law and order, something else stirred. 1 week after Daniel's death, a candlelight vigil was held in the Hopewell town square. Not for him, but for the victims. Small white candles lined the steps of the old courthouse, each flame flickering in memory of a child, a mother, a teenage girl robbed of innocence, and one small unborn life, destined to grow up carrying a legacy of silence. At the vigil, no speeches were given, no prayers, only silence. But beneath the silence, a question lingered. Was this really the end? Because while Daniel was gone, his words remained. His sermons, his journals, his warped theology, uploaded, shared, and quietly spreading across obscure forums online. Investigators later discovered that Daniel had been communicating with a small group of fringe believers through encrypted emails. They called him the Messenger. Their conversations spoke of prophecy, of purity, of cleansing the church. It wasn't just about one man. This was bigger. Cult specialists were brought in. They warned that cases like this weren't isolated, that predators often hide behind religion, that manipulation can look like salvation, that devotion can be a disguise. And so, while Elena entered witness protection, her new life hidden behind legal walls and aliases, the rest of the country was left with a bitter, unsettling truth. How many others are still out there, still hiding behind pulpits, disguising evil as divinity? How many victims feel trapped, told their silence is obedience, their suffering is sacrifice? The green case was over, the headlines faded. But for every Elena, there may be dozens more who never speak. This wasn't just the story of a family destroyed. It was the story of how blind trust can become a weapon, how faith, when twisted, can turn dangerous, and how monsters don't always wear masks. Sometimes they wear collars. Sometimes they quote scripture. Sometimes they smile from the altar. And when they fall, the echo rings through every home that ever believed in them. Before we end, we want to hear from you. Do you believe monsters can hide behind holy faces? Tell us in the comments, and if you never want to miss stories like this, hit that subscribe button. Stay safe, stay questioning, and always look closer. One small town, one twisted man, one horrifying secret that shattered everything people thought they knew about faith, family, and trust. Pastor Daniel Green was supposed to be a protector, a leader, a father. But behind closed doors, he became something else entirely. He manipulated scripture, controlled his own daughter, erased his wife and children, and nearly took the truth with him to the grave. But what do you think? Was this a case of pure madness, a descent into delusion no one could have stopped, or was it cold, calculated, planned for years? While he stood behind a pulpit and preached about righteousness? Let us know in the comments. We read every single one, and we want to hear from you. Because stories like this aren't just about crime, they're about people, about how far someone will go to protect their truth, even when it's built on horror. And if you thought this was dark, wait until you hear what happened when a woman married the inmate she'd been writing letters to, and vanished the very next night. No trace, no witnesses, no body. Just one wedding ring, left behind on a motel nightstand. That story is coming next, and you won't want to miss it. If you made it this far, thank you. Hit that like button. It helps us bring more real stories like this to light. And don't forget to subscribe, so you never miss the truth hiding in plain sight. We'll see you in the next one. And until then, stay aware and stay listening.